Welcome to Paley Front Row, presented by Citi.
Women have to overcome more obstacles to reach the top. It's made them fiercely determined and more innovative. Just because they can navigate the obstacles doesn't mean they should have to. Citi is committed to investing in opportunities for 10 million women globally by 2025.
What a show, and what a show we have for you tonight. Let me introduce our panel. First up, Dylan Dreyer, co-host of the third hour of Today, and NBC News meteorologist. Sheinelle Jones, co-host of the third hour of Today. Carson Daly, co-host of Today. Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of Today and NBC News chief legal correspondent. Hoda Kotb, co-anchor of Today and co-host of Today with Hoda and Jenna. Al Roker, weather and feature anchor Today, co-host the third hour. Jenna Hager, co-host of Today with Hoda and Jenna. Willie Geist, host of Sunday Today with Willie Geist, co-host of Morning Joe on MSNBC, and also with us, Craig Melvin. Hi, Craig, news anchor of Today, and co-host. Yes, there you go.
Congratulations on 7 decades today.
Thank you so much. So here's my first question. They've seen the sizzle reel. We are all well acquainted with the history of this amazing television program. Look at Carson.
I'm going to send it to him.
Right. So who of you remembers watching the Today Show like as a kid or as a teenager, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody was on your radar. All right.
No.
Roker
So
doesn't.
who did you,
We watch cartoons.
let's go all the way back. Let's go all the way back to Dylan and say, who did you see on the show that you just said that? There's something about that person that just knocked your socks off.
I'm lucky enough that he's also still in this room.
Yeah.
So, Al Roker, I grew up
Yeah. Sheinelle?
You know what? Interestingly enough, for me, it was Willard.
Oh.
I remember him doing the weather.
Yeah.
And he just made us feel warm, right?
Carson?
Mine's Al Roker, the great Uncle Al Roker.
Don't be mad, Al. It was Katie, you know? I saw Katie and I was like, oh, you don't have to be all like perfect and blonde and a certain way. Like, just normal people could maybe do this job too.
Right. Hoda?
Mine was Jane Pauley. There was something about seeing Jane Pauley on TV. She was elegant, but she also knew her stuff.
Right.
And you're a kid and you're looking at her and you're thinking to yourself, like, that's a wow. In charge, but not overbearing. I thought she was really cool.
So Al, you didn't, what you...
Well, growing up, I mean, you know, I had 5 brothers and sisters and only one TV. So we watched cartoons in the morning. My mother put those on to get us out of the house. And
Gotcha.
calm down. But when I was in college, I started watching the show, and it was as I got older, really Willard Scott, because I worked with Willard in Washington, D.C., or knew him in Washington, D.C., but also Bryant Gumbel.
Right? Amazing. Absolutely groundbreaking. We'll get to some of the groundbreaking stuff in a little while. But also, what year did you first start filling in on the Today Show?
I started filling in 1986
Wow.
for the show. And then I became part of the Sunday Today Show. The first broadcast was September 20th, 1987, which also September 20th is also Deborah Roberts' birthday. My wife.
So we don't have to be impressed that you remember that.
No.
Okay. All right. Jenna, how about you?
I remember being a little girl in Midland, Texas, and my grandmother, Jenna, and Pa loved the Today Show. And Willard was who I remember, too. I don't know if that's like a Southern thing, Sheinelle, but Willard was somebody that I loved.
Yeah. Willie?
Bryant Gumbel for me, for sure. I
Right.
would echo that. I was a sports fan. I knew he could cover sports, and he could do news, and it said to me, oh, you can be all these different things and be good at them. And I also will shout out Gene Shalit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gene Shalit jumped off the screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's that guy?
Right?
He's amazing.
Absolutely. He came on the screen, you could not turn the
Exactly.
channel. Could not turn the
Exactly.
channel.
Yeah.
Just as an aside, as a person of a certain age, I remember watching Dave Garroway
Wow.
on
Really?
TV.
Wow.
I wore a bow tie in his honor in Today's Show Orange, right? But I have vivid memories of this guy, and I thought, I don't know what that is exactly. I'm this big, but that guy is really cool,
Yeah.
right?
That's very cool.
Yeah. So, how interesting circle that you would also end up then being part of this august group. Good for me.
Craig.
You know what? Thank goodness.
The hovering.
You know what? Our audience is like our family, and so they don't mind.
Yes.
Craig, how about you?
First of all, I want to apologize because you guys all look so good, and here I look like I've had COVID for 4 or 5 days, stuck in my house, and you don't even want to know what I'm wearing beneath the shirt.
Just like you're here.
Wow. Whoa.
I got that on me.
For me, it was Bryant Gumbel, and for me, it was seeing a guy that looked like me, who was completely comfortable in his own skin, delivering the news, and people took him seriously. And then, to Willie's point, he wasn't just a news guy; he was a sports guy, and even now, like I love Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel. Like it's just. Bryant was sort of the first guy that I watched and remember thinking, oh yeah, maybe I could do that. And his coverage, and I think we just showed a clip of it there, in '95, the Oklahoma City bombing. Like that's always been seared in my memory. But yeah, no, there was no other show on in the Melvin household in Columbia, South Carolina, other than the Today Show, save a few years when Harry Smith was hosting. I do want to apologize for the shot because it looks like I'm sorry, Al and Savannah. And
You're good. You're good.
I'm sorry.
All right.
This is it.
So, we all know here what it's like to be on this show. And I have to tell you, it's different from anything I've done in almost 50 years of broadcasting, okay? The relationship with these folks, with the audience, is completely different level. Talk to me about the first time you bumped into somebody, or in an airport or on the street, and they gave you do you know how much you mean to me? Talk to me about that, because this is what this show is so much about.
It is. I mean, you do that show in a studio where it's just some of us and some camera guys and a few stage managers, and it feels like just us in that room. And then you go out into the world and you go into an airport and you say, first of all, somebody says, my mom's been watching this show since she was a kid, and then I've been watching it since I was a kid. My daughter loves you guys. And there is something generational and passed on about the Today Show that it gives a responsibility to what we do, because you are sort of the guardian and the protector of this legacy, and you want to keep the standard where it's been since Dave Garroway and J. Fred Muggs were rolling out, and Tom Brokaw was there, and
That was a
Gumbel,
drinking game.
and all the way up the line.
I was like first person who says J. Fred Muggs.
I know.
You owe me a drink.
Well
you owe
done.
me a drink. But no, it's very real and it's palpable. People, this show means a lot to a lot of people, and you have to take that into consideration when you do your job.
So you anchor on the Sundays. You two anchor Monday through Friday, right? And speaking of first, Brian Gumbel, first black anchor of the Today Show. First time in morning show history, there are 2 women anchor people. To be the anchor of the big show. What's that like? Hoda,
Go ahead, Hoda.
Hoda, you go first.
You know what's funny about it? When it happened that Savannah and I started anchoring together, and you all know those circumstances, but I remember I went to a Soul Cycle class the next day, and I walked in, and usually it's someone's birthday and everyone's always applauding, and I walked in and people started applauding, and I literally was looking around. I was like, whose birthday? Where's the little cake that, that they all bring out? And they said, no, what you and Savannah did today, that changed everything. And it wasn't until that moment that it hit me that it was something that meant something to other people. And like a woman came up with her young daughter and says, I want you to know something. My daughter now thinks it's totally normal to wake up in the morning and see 2 women next to each other. And that's changed now for these kids. And I think for Savannah and I, we like each other and we work well together. I don't know that if it really struck us that it was such a moment.
No, all I know was in that moment, it was like I felt like I could drown if Hoda hadn't reached down and grabbed my hand, And I will always say, to me, she saved the show, full stop. And her holding hands with her and being like, we're going to do this together, meant everything to me. I don't think I had the confidence by myself. I never wanted to be in that position. And I have to give a lot, and I'm not just buttering them up, I have to give a ton of credit to our bosses at NBC at the time who were like, up until this point, it'd be like, oh, so-and-so's off. Well, what guy can fill in? Like it always, and that was it through local news, through everything I'd ever done. And then for them to say like, if we could get Hoda to do it, it's like, yes, if we could get Hoda to do it. And, so that's just so beautiful to me. More than like it's wonderful to have a female partnership, but to me, it's like to have this friend and cheerleader and partner. And I really feel that from her, and I hope we share that, it's like, it's incredible. I say, I'll hold my hands and close my eyes and go anywhere with you. I would.
Oh.
It's true.
Oh. Carson.
That should be on a Hallmark card. I would give that to my wife.
Carson.
I would add the word almost.
Almost anywhere. Carson, who do you want to hold your hand?
You.
Yeah, it's true.
You don't know how much I love you, Harry.
Yeah.
I always say it. You are the Yoda to my Skywalker. I've been watching you in this business forever. Even when you're at CBS, I'll say it here. I think and I've told you this, I think you're a huge inspiration for me. And I'm so glad that I get to see you more often now. So,
Listen, I'm the most fortunate person in the world to have been able to go through the ups and downs of this business and to land with you all. I saw Noah a couple of months ago, our boss, Noah Oppenheim, and I said, this may be some of the best days for me because all I ever wanted to do was tell stories. Yeah. So we're telling stories here today, right? Dylan.
I've never been interviewed by Harry
hear
Smith
that?
before.
I know.
This is like,
Did you hear that?
ask
You
her
got
what
a
that time in
whoop.
Yeah, there was a whoop.
First, great job on the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
thank you.
Right? But what is that? That's the
way that you got that long shot to win.
Can you imagine if I bet on that?
Yeah.
I think it was my 8th or 9th.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a long time.
Let's talk a little bit about the third hour, because it's its own distinct sort of creature. And there you are with Sheinelle, and you hold forth with Craig, right? And with Al. What do you hope to bring every day?
Well, I think there's one little secret about the third hour of today. When there are different hosts of different shows, and there was one point where Al, Sheinelle, and I were kind of just filling in, right? And then different hosts came on, and Al said, what if we go get a room in 30 Rock and we...
Whoa.
Wow.
And this is the backstory to
Dylan,
how.
talk slower. Deborah?
This is how Off the Rails came to be. We literally enjoyed each other's company so much, and we enjoyed the stories we got to tell together, that we were literally recording us talking on a cell phone and posting it to a random YouTube channel. I mean, just the three of us. And Sheinelle and I are like, Al Roker really seems to want to do this with us. This is really strange. Like, okay, we'll do it because we'll do anything, but Al wants to talk with us. So we have this rapport. And to add Craig into the mix, I mean, it is so much fun to work with people that you trust, that you know they're going to tee you up because they know the story you're about to tell. So they're going to tee you up so that you tell that story because it's funny and it's going to make people laugh, or it's going to make people cry. You know, it's going to be a story you can relate to. And I think we've gotten so lucky now with the third hour of today, because now we're actually backed with producers who put together even better stories than we could possibly tell. And I just think that the stories we tell in the third hour are relatable stories. Sometimes they're very personal stories that we tell. I remember going into my whole bout with IVF and not being able to have a second child, and you know, to be able to tell that story and to bring a doctor on to hopefully give other people who are going through the same thing the opportunity to learn something from my situation to help in their situation. And we also get to have a lot of fun. We do the buddy up, where the four of us just go out and do something crazy. Like, we thought Al was going to kill us when he got behind the wheel of a stick shift Mustang and just like drove to the end of a dock. I mean, I didn't know where we were going with that.
We
But
did a Thelma and Louise. It was
we did do a Thelma and Louise. So we check off a lot of boxes on the third hour, and it's special.
Sheinelle, I've learned so much about your family, right? Especially your family back in the middle of the country. When you get to tell those stories, what does that mean to you?
It's everything. You know, it's really special when you have grandparents, my grandfather was 98, my grandmother's 92, when they can wake up every morning and see their grandchild. When my mom can wake up every morning, she just retired during the pandemic, and see her child and see their kids and their great-grandkids, and they feel like Al and Dylan and Craig are part of the family just like, anybody else. That is such a blessing. And it's not just with, and it almost feels like, and if you've gone away, I graduated from college at high school in '96, and I haven't been back. But it's almost like your life catches up with your childhood, so you can bring your whole self to work. So a lot of us have climbed the ladder, right? My first job was Springfield, Illinois, then Tulsa, Oklahoma, then Philly for 10 years. And so viewers get to know you in doses. But at the Today Show, you bring your whole self. You bring your Wichita, Kansas. You bring, yes, I worked in Philly for 10 years. Yes, my grandfather was a doctor. Oh, yes, my dad is this. And you know who I am? I like to dance. I dressed up as Janet Jackson when I was in seventh grade. All of those things, we bring it to the people at home, and it feels like our light gets to dance with your light. And I mean that so sincerely every morning. Some mornings are happy mornings, and other mornings are kind of crappy. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and it's such a gift.
So these personal stories end up being so important, and I'm going to get Craig on this too in just a minute. But Carson, of the things that you've talked about on the show, about mental health, for instance, and your own struggles with anxiety, for me, that's a game changer as an audience member, because I know you as, you're Carson Daly. And when Carson Daly, the image that I have from Total Request Live and that show that was on.
The Eminem song.
No, and your NBC show that you did, started doing 21 years ago.
Yeah.
I know that guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't know you were that guy that had things that maybe you wouldn't have been so willing to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you asked Willie about people coming up to you, I mean, I've been on TV every day since 1997, literally. And there was a big changing moment was with Craig. And I'm somebody that, if you've seen, I'm pretty much the way I am on the air as I am in real life. I talk about the things I'm not really afraid to open up. And we had a really organic moment. We were covering Kevin Love, the basketball player, who wrote an article for the Players Tribune about a panic attack he had during an NBA game. We were doing the story, and when we rolled the piece, the video in the studio, I said to Craig and to whoever was there, I said, I've gone through this exactly as he's describing this gripping feeling of being out of control and the way he ran off the NBA court. I go, this happened to me my whole time at MTV. It's happened to me during The Voice. I've been dealing with this. And he was like, eyes got big. When we got back on the air, he just asked me about it. And of course, I just opened up and said, yeah, I mean, I've been, for probably 20 years, I suffered in silence, like so many of us, thinking I was slowly going crazy because I had these fight or flight sort of situations. And I went to cognitive therapy for 12 weeks. I studied the model of anxiety. I have generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder. It's something that I've had to deal with. And I'm not afraid to talk about it. And I manage it well. And I'm not alone in that. And ever since that day and all the pieces that I've done about mental health in a quest to kind of break the stigma of mental health, because people have that picture of me like, oh, you're Mr. Perfect. You're the guy on TV. Everything's great. Well, that's not the case. You know, everything is great and I'm blessed, but like it's been a struggle. I've had to work through things and we all do. That's the thing I get now everywhere. Wow. From everything I've ever done, I get that now. Thank you for the mental health thing, or I've got my son I'm worried about, or this or that. Yeah. So yeah, I thank Craig really for his sort of instinct journalism to kind of, even with his colleague, which we do on the air now, to bring that out.
Yeah, and Craig,
I'm sorry if that was long. I was having a mini panic attack during that answer, so I'm sorry if it was long.
I sense that. The reason I went in this journey this way with you in order to get to Craig, because Craig has been so important, I think, in the way he has communicated what he and his brother have gone through together, and the cancer, and the need for people to do the things they need to do in order to prevent that in the first place. What has that meant to you to have this platform to communicate to so many millions of people how important it is?
You know, Harry, first of all, I did not know Carson, what he just shared. I didn't know that. So I'm happy and honored to have been a part of that. And I think that speaks volumes about the power of the show. And Harry, and I think I've said this to you before, you know, I'm not a naturally public guy. I don't like to share things typically. I generally think most people overshare by and large. And when my older brother was diagnosed with colon cancer, it set my family for a loop. It set me for a loop. I questioned a lot of things, and I found solace in the show and the schedule. You know, as someone said to me once, sometimes the place needs you, and sometimes you need the place. And I was at a time in my life when I really needed the place. And I'll never forget this. I'll never forget it. And I know it always makes her uncomfortable when I bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up. But the morning that my brother died, I'm in my dressing room, and for folks who are familiar with 1A, you know, my dressing room is next to Savannah's, which is next to Al's, which is next to Hoda's, and then which is next to Jenna's. And, you know, I'm in my dressing room, and my sister-in-law calls, and she gives us the news that we had been expecting. And the very first person who came through my dressing room door was the leader of our show, our North Star, Savannah Guthrie. And she comes in, and I gathered that she heard from hair and makeup what had happened, because my door was probably cracked. And she comes in and she grabs my hand and she hugs me. Not a big hugger, Harry, but in that moment I was. And she prayed with me. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but I do know in that moment that was precisely what I needed. And that was it. was able to leave and carry on and be what my family needed me to be. But people talk about the secret sauce of the Today Show and 70 years and the institution that it is and blah, blah, blah. And all that's true. But one of the things that I think that, and you will never hear me praise news management on a regular basis. But I think in terms of casting, they figured it out. And we don't have to fake it. And I think maybe at times we have, but we genuinely love each other. And we're there for each other, and we support each other. We're there for the mountains, we're there for the valleys. And you know, the show itself has become a great platform for awareness, for colon cancer and for me and my family. And that's great and all. And to Carson's point, for what he's doing in the mental health space, I didn't fully appreciate it until my brother died, that the show could help the way that it has. So I'm thankful in that regard. And I've talked far too long for somebody who's lording over others via Zoom. I apologize.
So there's this thing about morning television that shows really want you to express yourself in ways that perhaps you didn't think you would as you were getting into broadcasting. And I think about your show with Hoda's, and there you go in to replace Kathie Lee. What? When you got the job, what'd you think?
I mean, I was so excited. I can't even tell you. And my dad called. I don't even know if Hoda knows this. And he said, but you know Hoda's the star, right? And I said, yes, Dad. I'm very well aware. And it's just such an honor. I mean, Kathie Lee is a legend. And listen, I went to a lot of lunches and drank Chardonnay at 11 a.m. so that I could be ushered into that seat. And I will never forget those lunches. But Hoda and I talk about this a lot. I used to my sister is in global health and she does really important work. And when we were together and doing things, I would say, oh, I just sit next to Hoda or Kathie Lee as the years of filling in and drink Chardonnay and sort of be self-deprecating. And since the pandemic, I don't do that anymore because Hoda and I have been together where people have said, you got me through a really hard time. You make me smile. And so I think none of us take what we do lightly. It's important. And it's fun, and I feel the same way that Savannah does. I get to sit next to Hoda Kotb every single day, and I'm...
Hey, Harry, can I say something about Jenna?
Please.
Jenna stepped into that show, which was one of those things that would have been difficult for anyone. Jenna has a way of taking her heart, putting it on the table, and offering it up. She does it every single day. I have never seen someone make such a connection with people the way Jenna has. People, I mean, within a couple of months, everyone's asking me, what's Jenna like? Is Jenna like this? Is Jenna like that? And to step into this institution, Jenna, you were a school teacher.
Yeah.
But she knows, how to speak to people. Jenna's one of, if not the best listener on this panel. Jenna looks at you in your eyes. She does not break eye contact. And she does it with me, she does it with the viewer. And Jenna's gonna be around for a long, long time.
We're going to do some lightning round stuff here in just a second.
Good.
But I just have to say, there's so many things that all of you do on an individual basis, but I just want to do this one quickly. Thank you for the science that you bring to the show every single day. Because you know what? You could have been the funny weatherman, but you said, no, there's more to this job.
Well, look, I try to bring a little of both, but I'm very fortunate that we've got an incredible staff at our NBC News climate unit that helps me bring the science, and not to push fake science, but to really bring it to what is happening currently, because I do believe that climate change is the existential threat of our time. And again, we've got our Today Show management team and NBC News management team that has leaned into that as well and given us the opportunity to do that. I still try to bring a little levity. My idea is that hopefully you feel a little bit better after you've watched than before you watched, but many times.
Not after those climate segments.
That's true. But, hey, if you're going to go with a smile.
Okay. I'm going to do some sort of rapid fire things. And the first one I want to do is person, either person in real life or in your case, I understand you interview like a lot of movie stars and stuff on Sundays. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's usually before my segment.
Yeah. By the way, we are blessed. When we started, when we started Sunday Today, one of the things I said was, we got to get Harry on. Every week, if we're lucky, we'll take him whenever he can do it, and we are lucky enough that he's on every other week we push you pretty hard. But Harry Smith is an absolute legend. He's become legend implies your best years are behind you, so maybe that's not the right term. He is so good at what he does. There's not a better storyteller, and all of our shows are better off.
Yes.
Thank you, Harry.
Thanks for letting me lead you there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a person that stands out as, oh my gosh, this was the craziest, most amazing. I'm so glad I got a chance to do this, / put them, whatever, on TV. Can you name one?
You want the movie star answer?
No.
Oh.
In the whole realm of everything you've ever done.
Oh my God.
Don't say the Pope, that's mine.
Okay.
You didn't interview.
I'll save that for you. I'll save that for you. I mean, there are a lot of ordinary people, honestly, who stand out to me the most. We did a whole segment on a family shelter in Bushwick, Brooklyn, with a young woman named Dominique, whose story we followed, and we went and renovated. And by the way, that's the power of the Today Show.
Yes.
The movie star stuff is great, and that's fun. You get to drive around Beverly Hills in a drop top with Al Pacino. That's cool.
Amazing segment.
But the real power of the Today Show is we can go in and partner with Home Depot and Bright Horizons and these groups and go into a family homeless shelter in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and renovate the whole place and change the lives of a bunch of kids and give them some joy and some light in their day and their lives, and maybe even change the path that they're on. So the Sunday Show is such a blast because I get to talk to all those people, but the true joy and the real power of the show, I think, is when we get to go in and maybe make a little bit of a difference in somebody's life. So that's my favorite.
He is so right on, but I am going to say Maya Angelou.
That's good too.
I got to sit at her home here in New York when I was pregnant with my first daughter, Mila, and she had just written a memoir called Mom, Me, and Mom. And if you haven't read it, get it right now. And I just wept at her, which is, every given day, but particularly this day as she told the story of how her mother raised her to be who she was to us. And then also talked about being a single mom to her own son. And that was by far the most meaningful day, really one of them. Don't tell my children of my life.
Right. But of the people in the world I've encountered, she was some extra power.
She was
right, no question.
Incredible.
And book club. You have a book
The
club.
book club, yes.
Right?
That's fun too. I
Right.
wish she could be in it.
Kind of picking up on what Willie said, we've gotten to do this Lend a Hand Today series where we've gone when there have been disasters and things, and we've gotten to do that. But from a personal standpoint, I'm an amateur cartoonist, and I got to interview Charles Schulz twice. Once on the 50th anniversary of Peanuts, and then sadly 6 months later, when he had been diagnosed with colon cancer, and he asked me to come back out and do that, and it was heartbreaking, and yet joyful in that he got to know how much he meant to people, and those little characters on those newspaper pages meant to so many people, not just here, but around the world.
That's amazing. I'm thinking of so many different people who I've interviewed, but there's been one interview that I just did recently that is like living with me, and I can't let her go. And it was sitting with Viola Davis. And I'll tell you why. You know that people have difficult childhoods, but Viola spent most of her childhood, she described it as hungry. The only thing she could think of was how she was going to get her next meal. She lived with abuse in her home, in her school, outside of her home. There was no safe place ever for her, ever. So I said to her, you know, she pulled herself out and she ended up winning an Oscar and a Tony. And I said, how did you do that? Like, how does one go from despair to, you know, the big stage? And she said something that I didn't forget. She said, I want you to remember this. I said, okay. She said, do not mistake achievement for healing. Healing is a lifelong process. Those people who have those shiny awards, they're not necessarily healed. Viola is in process of healing. And she tells the truth. And I think that's my favorite interview. Somebody who tells the truth. It doesn't matter if you're famous or if you're anybody, but that to me stirred me, and she's unafraid. She's brave. And for some reason, I've been haunted by that interview. And I interviewed her for Sirius, for Us, and for my podcast. And I would interview her 10 more times. Amazing. Yeah.
Savannah, take a crack.
Gosh, it's so hard. We're obviously not very good at the lightning round.
We're like, anyway, we're
looking for a 2-word answer. Well, it's just funny because it's like I could be like, well, I met Duran Duran, you know, or whatever, which was great. But weirdly, like my favorite memories of what I've got to do at the Today Show are like discovering my family. And the Today Show sent me back to Australia, and I went with my mom. And I was born in Australia, but I didn't have any memory of it. And I got to go. They found, our producer Jen Long found the hospital where I was born, the very room where I was born, the midwives in the 70s who delivered me. And they said, bring your mom, you know, to go back to the place you were born, where it all started with your mom is like really profound. And I got to go to the Holy Land, and I all my life wanted to go to see it. And I didn't know what to expect and to touch those places and feel, you know, it's amazing. And then finally, I would say I got to fly. My brother's an F-16 pilot, and I got to go fly with him on the F-16. And it reminded me of being he's 7 years older than me. He always had a need for speed. He went to jail. That was another story. But anyway, he landed on his feet. In fact, but he would go, and I would get on the back of his motorcycle as a little girl driving up these crazy, curvy, terrifying roads in Tucson, Arizona, holding onto the back of him like, oh my God, Mom's gonna kill us. And then suddenly, flash forward, I'm in the back of an F-16.
Wow.
And he is Colonel Guthrie. And he is like, ready, sis? Here we go. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this is the most amazing job ever.
No pressure, Carson.
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
My sister also did Hard Time.
Didn't we all?
No? I'll say two things as quickly as possible. First of all, I echo I had a late night show for 17 years, and like you feel like you've interviewed everybody after a while. And I agree with Willie. There's something very powerful about having a platform to give a voice to the voiceless now, and to shine a light on those. We just did Nurses Appreciation Week, and like every one of those stories touches my heart. Whenever we shine a light on people doing good, people helping people who you don't know who they are, you don't follow them on Instagram, there's something extra special about that. But quickly, my favorite story is and it's a love letter to my mother who passed away a few years ago. She was a very special woman, but she loved the Beatles more than life. She was there in 1963 when they came over. She saw the first show at the Hollywood Bowl. I heard about this my whole life. So cut to my having an opportunity at MTV. I boarded a yacht in Manhattan, just me and Paul McCartney and a small crew. And I spent an hour going around New York talking with with Paul at the front of the boat, and he told me the history of the Beatles.
Wow.
He would tell me, as we're going around New York, talking about the Beatles coming to the States for the first time, when he was a kid, he would run to John's house and knock on his basement door, and they would sit across from each other, and John was left-handed, and Paul was right-handed, so they were a mirror of each other.
Wow.
And they would work on the chords to Love Me Do, and he would, I've got this thing, and so here's Paul telling me all of this, and all I'm doing is thinking about my mother. Like, I wish my mom was here, and at the end of the interview, Paul McCartney was gracious enough to call my house.
Oh my God!
We're dialing my mother in Palm Springs, California, and as I'm dialing, please answer the phone.
Oh my God!
Please answer the phone. And she usually does.
Oh,
But she has these answering machines, and she put all these little cute messages on, and we get the freaking answering machine. And he leaves this message, "Hey, Patty, it's Paul McCartney here," and leaves this gracious message. But then she called me later, screaming. She's never missed anything in my life. Never one of my phone calls before. Call her anyway. So that was special because of the.
Wow. Really, Carson? No. Okay, so mine is going to seem so ridiculous, but listen, it is what it is. So mine, two really quick ones, but they're for me. This is our truth, right? So my two are Quincy Jones and Savannah Glover. So really quickly, when I was in college, I told everybody that Quincy Jones was my uncle, because how would the truth ever come out? And so I remember being at the Northwestern Student Center, and I'd forgotten that I told that lie, because it was like a joke one day. And these kids came up to me, and they're like singing, and they're like, "Please tell your uncle." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand, he's not really my uncle." And they didn't believe me, and I'm like, whatever. So then full circle, like my first week on the Today Show, I think it was on the weekend, he came in and surprised me, and I can't even tell you, like as a kid, I used to make up dances to his music. I mean, again, it's like your life catches up to itself. And the second one, really quickly, Savannah. So when I was in 4th grade, I was at this conference, and I used to tap, and I'd heard that he was staying at this hotel in DC. Tap dance. And so I'd heard that.
Just trying to help folks.
Yeah, sorry, I used to tap dance. And so Savannah was like, anyway, amazing. He would dance with Gregory Hines, blah, blah. So we're at this conference, and I'm with my friends, and I'm like, Savannah Glover's at this place, and I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna find him, and I'm gonna tell him that we're gonna get married, and it's gonna be great. And so I get to the hotel, we're there, my mom's at this like adult conference, and I go up to the, as if you're 4th grader, you go up to the counter, you're like, "Can you tell me where Savannah Glover is staying?" And she's like, "Oh, sweetie, we don't do that." And I'm like, "Okay." So then I get on the escalator to go meet my mom, and here he comes. Up the escalator, I'm in like 4th grade. I'm going down, he's coming up. This is my moment. We pass each other, and I did this. And the moment was gone. Until the Today Show. I told that story. I don't know how they worked it out. And next thing you know, on the Today Show, I'm tap dancing on the Apollo Theater stage.
Wow.
Like next level. Yeah, Jenna knows the story goes on from there, but I'll leave the story there. But yeah, the Today Show seriously makes dreams come true, like in ways that you can't even imagine. So it's not the Beatles, but for me, like Savannah and Quincy Jones are like my Beatles.
Yeah, that works. That works.
So this is the problem working with such incredible people, is they have all those stories to tell, and I have to now tell a story. I mean, I don't know how to compare with everything you guys just said, but that's part of the thing with the Today Show is parts of the job can be very intimidating, and sometimes I don't know if I'm worthy of the job. You know, it's just the natural insecurities that you feel. And, you know, before COVID, we used to do these junkets all the time. And I think somebody else couldn't do it, so that's why they asked me to do it. And it was for Quentin Tarantino's movie, The Hateful Eight. So you've got, they said, you're going to do the interview. It's a junket style, but they'll all be in a room. You've got them for 20 minutes. It was Samuel L. Jackson, Quentin Tarantino, Bruce Dern, Kurt Russell. And I was like, all my anxieties were coming out because I want to do an interview and not have to like read my notes the whole time. You know, I want this to be ingrained in my head. So I watched Hateful Eight twice. I made my husband watch it with me again so that any like little quirky questions he could kind of throw my way. I read my notes. I studied my notes all night long. I'm practicing, I'm memorizing them, and I'm going over them in the mirror because this is like just, you know, we interview a lot of celebrities and some of them are just really, you imagine them to be intimidating. So I get into this room and it's little me and like 8 chairs of these people in this movie. And something like this calm just came over me where I just got comfortable and I just started having a conversation. And I was like asking one person, like, what's it like being in the school of Quentin Tarantino? And I could tell he really liked that question because it gave him like a little, boosted his ego a bit. And I'm just having this great conversation and I'm rattling off questions. I don't look at my notes once. They're there just in case. And at the end of that interview, Bruce Dern comes up to me and he said, you know why that was a good interview? And I said, first of all, thought it was a good interview. That's awesome. And he said, because you did your research.
Aww.
And it was just this moment that, yeah, I did do my research. And I do it every single day. And I try really hard. And I read all my notes. And, okay, maybe I do belong here. Because I do work really hard for this.
What Dylan isn't telling you is about the time she interviewed Zac Efron.
Oh, yeah.
And she lost control of the English language. But you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, please don't look that one up. I'm embarrassed just thinking about it.
So this show goes on the air, this Today Show goes on the air 70 years ago. There's nothing like it on television. Most people in America don't even have televisions 70 years ago. Years go by, GMA finally joins. Years go by, CBS was still running Captain Kangaroo. They didn't really have a morning show. Right.
Yeah, I loved that show.
And then cable comes, and now streaming's there. I suppose we'll all be watching the Today Show in the metaverse by 75 years. But for our two anchors, as we conclude, we're going to be here 5 years from now to talk about 75?
Absolutely, aren't you?
Does that be all right with you?
I hope so.
70 years ago, they came up with this beautiful concept. First of all, there is no more enviable brand today or then than today. Who doesn't want to be today? It's so current, it's so relevant, and we've really tried to be that. Also, the way that it was launched as this beautiful, I say, alchemy of news and information. It sets the agenda. It lets you be human. There's inspiration, there's art, there's culture, there's inanity, there's friendship, there's personality. It's all of those things. If you were inventing this show today, you wouldn't do it. Not in this culture. You'd be like, oh, people won't let your news anchor interview the president 1 hour and go roller skating with Oprah the next hour. That can't be. Right. But that's what this show has, and I actually think it like reflects the human experience. None of us is one-dimensional. And so for me, I think that's why it has staying power. So whether it's on digital or your TikTok or whatever thing that I don't understand, we'll be here. Yeah. We'll find you. You don't have to look for us. We'll find you. And the company and these people and these talents and the DNA of this place very much is about the viewers. It's like people talk a lot about like, oh, people really feel like they know you or this is your family. It's like, no, we feel that way about you. We feel that way about you. We love you. Way more than you love us.
We do love you, but what else we like is sleep. We just want to thank Dylan and Sheinelle and Carson and Savannah and Hoda and Al, right? Jenna, Willie.
He's alive.
Thank you all for being here. So appreciate it.
Good job, Harry.
Thank you.